The garden traces its origin really back to this tea house. One of the hats that John Humes wore was that he was the chairman of a company called the Hong Kong Trading Company. The idea that he had was that this tea house, put next to an existing pond, would make a nice little complement to the pond, and that the garden could be changed to reflect an Asian garden. And then he was referred to this Japanese couple, Douglas and Joan DeFaya. That was the beginning of the garden as we know it now.
It's really the ambassador who told me about Douglas DeFaya, his relationship with them and how they developed the garden. It kept going and going for 4 years, shipping rocks from Connecticut across the Sound, and it soon was a few acres of those lovely gardens.
He knew I loved gardens. He had no sons or children, so he invited me to become his apprentice over here at the Humes Garden. Their original conception was at the top of the hill, was the original entrance gate. As you came in, you travel down these layers from heaven, earth, and to sea to the inner garden where you would come into the tea house to meet the owner or to go through the tea ceremony. And all these traditions were built in.
The strolling garden is an expansion on those ideas that were developed in the tea garden. The context for the Humes Garden is a natural forest. And so the ongoing kind of battle is between trying to allow that forest aesthetic to remain and yet have it be garden-esque at the same time. And so it has the feel of a forest, but in a more idealized fashion, a more cultivated fashion. The theme to kind of tell the story of the garden, tying it into both its history in Japan and this place specifically, was that of the garden being a journey, being a sort of spiritual journey where through the beauty of the garden and your immersion in nature, that would help you let go of your self-clinging. And I know this might sound a little out there, but in a sense encourage you to be the garden while you're here, to experience it directly rather than as some sort of outside observer.
My first impression of the Humes Japanese Stroll Garden was, wow. The steps leading up to the top, essentially to the top of the mountain, and the way they were paced, I got. And then to come back down at the intended pace in that stroll garden and to arrive at that tea house is really beautiful.
Some of these stepping stones you realize are around. Just the top is showing. Because Doug liked the top for some reason and had a characteristic to it, so we had to dig a bigger hole and put this whole rock down there. It has a feeling of strength to it. As you're walking through the garden, you'll stand on this big rock and you'll feel that strength below you, and it'll make you pause.
The day that I went to the Humes, it was a misty, moisty morning, and there was the sound of the clicking of the bamboo groves, and then the precise way the water slowly dripped into the stone vessels, or the way you came upon the pond. It was not an accidental bit of serendipity. It was planned for you to see the garden that way and for it to unfold.
My strongest goal was to convince John and Jean Humes to conserve, to preserve this garden and to make it alive, keep it alive. Unless you find a way that a garden can live, have its soul maintained and kept alive, those gardens are very quickly gone.
I think what's very challenging from the perspective of a garden is that it's a living art, so it's constantly changing on its own. And I think, personally, I think a mistake is thinking that you can keep it in a fixed state. It has to evolve.
The conservation of a garden is not about the maintenance. It's not about, the replanting of a tree when the storm took it away. It's about constantly tuning the harmony between the elements and the sky and the space. It is very much like a piece of music which keeps evolving. So it's a matter of tuning, and that's what we're trying to encourage and share with the people so that they can, in their turn, experience that kind of beauty, that kind of vibration, that kind of harmony.